The Sakyans are fierce, rough-spoken, and touchy. They are mere menials who do not respect or revere Brahmins. Wow, okay, just imagine walking right up to a highly revered teacher and instantly insulting their entire family line to their face. Well, believe it or not, that is exactly how our source text begins. This incredibly bold and, frankly, super disrespectful ancient insult comes from an arrogant young Brahmin named Ambattha. And let me tell you, it sets the stage for one of the absolute most dramatic ideological showdowns in all of ancient literature. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the Ambattha Sutta. It's a truly fascinating text from the ancient Buddhist canon that takes us on, well, just an incredible journey. What starts out as a very tense, high-stakes status battle over caste and bloodlines totally transforms into this profound exploration of the Buddhist philosophical truths. If you're into seeing rigid social hierarchies completely deconstructed and replaced with a system based on genuine human merit, you are absolutely going to love this. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover caste and prejudice, birthright versus conduct, morality and restraint, overcoming hindrances, supreme wisdom, and then finally, the realization of Dhamma. So starting right off with section 1, caste and the young Brahmin's prejudice and the confrontation itself. Right away, the text introduces us to Ambattha. He's this top-tier student who is sent by his very wealthy teacher, Pokartha Masati, to verify if the Buddha actually possesses the legendary 32 marks of a great man. But here's the thing. When Ambattha arrives, he doesn't behave like a scholar at all. He literally paces around while the Buddha is seated, acting just completely dismissive. It's a total collision of worldviews. See, Ambattha fundamentally believes human worth is entirely determined by birth, your lineage, and a rigid caste hierarchy. He thinks he's superior simply because he was born a Brahmin. But the Buddha's revolutionary counterview, he argues that a person's worth is completely detached from their bloodline, and that it's actually determined strictly by perfect conduct and supreme wisdom. So to counter all this arrogance, the Buddha asks Ambattha a really simple question about his own ancestry. Ambattha suddenly realizes it might expose a truth he'd rather keep hidden, so he stays totally silent. Twice. And then the source material describes this incredibly intense supernatural turning point. A fearsome spirit, the Yaksha Vajrapani, just appears right out of nowhere in the sky, hovering directly over Ambattha, holding a blazing iron hammer. I mean, the threat is crystal clear here. Answer the question or your head literally splits into 7 pieces. Terrified, obviously, Ambattha finally admits the truth. The Buddha then drops the mic, revealing that Ambattha's founding ancestor wasn't some noble deity at all, but actually the son of a Sakyan slave girl. The young scholar is instantly humbled by the exact same lineage he was just trying to mock. Moving on to section 2, birthright or moral conduct, redefining greatness. With the whole illusion of Ambattha's bloodline supremacy totally dismantled, our text pivots toward redefining what actually makes a person great. The Buddha shifts the entire focus from who your ancestors were to who you actually are right now. To drive this point home, he quotes an ancient Brahma deity, Sanam Kumara, saying, "The kshatriya is best among people who trust in lineage, but the one endowed with wisdom and conduct is best among gods and humans." Basically, the Buddha is saying, look, sure, if we're playing the petty game of social status, certain classes are going to rank higher. But in the ultimate, universal reality, conduct and wisdom completely transcend any kind of made-up social status. All right, section 3, caraṇa, morality and restraint, which is really the foundation of all this. So if birth doesn't matter, how exactly do we build this conduct? In the text, this is called caraṇa, and it acts as the absolute necessary foundation before anyone can even hope to achieve higher wisdom. The Buddha's massive catalog of rules can be neatly organized into 3 clear themes of sila, or morality. First up is minor sila. These are your basic morals, no killing, stealing, or lying. Then we step up to middle sila, which gets a bit stricter, avoiding luxury, games, and sensory entertainment. And finally, major sila. Now, what's really interesting about this category is how specific it gets for the context of this debate. It's a total rejection of superstition, fortune-telling, astrology, and magical exploitation. The Buddha is very clearly distancing true spiritual practice from those lucrative magical rituals that a lot of Brahmins used back then to gain power and wealth. Which brings us to section 4, analogies of overcoming hindrances and freeing the mind. Following these really strict moral codes purifies the mind. And the text compares this purification to some highly relatable, deeply human experiences of pure relief. Think about these scenarios for a second. Imagine finally paying off a massive, crushing financial debt, or waking up totally healed after a severe, long illness, stepping out into the warm sunlight after being locked up in a dark prison, gaining your literal freedom from slavery, or finally reaching safety after you nearly died of thirst in a perilous desert. The text states that the immense wave of relief, joy, and peace you'd feel in those exact moments, that is exactly how the mind feels when it finally drops all its worldly anxieties and hindrances. Now let's see how that sense of relief builds into the next phase, the 4 jhanas, or states of meditation. From that initial sense of freedom, the mind enters this beautiful sequential progression. Step 1 brings joy purely from secluding the mind from negativity. Then, in step 2, the mind focuses even further, finding joy from pure inner concentration. By step 3, that intense joy kind of mellows out, fading into a profound, steady equanimity. And finally, in step 4, the mind becomes like a perfectly still pool of water. It's pure mindfulness, completely beyond the duality of pleasure and pain. That sets us up perfectly for section 5, vijjā, the supreme wisdom, taking us beyond the physical. This brings us to the ultimate goal. From caraṇa, the conduct, we reach vijjā. This is the supreme wisdom that arises completely naturally from that perfectly still, concentrated mind we were just talking about. But you might be wondering, how exactly does a fully concentrated mind unlock the deepest secrets of the universe? Like, what actually happens when human consciousness is pushed to its absolute limits? Well, the Sutta outlines 8 specific forms of vijjā, and they range from deep philosophical insight all the way to the outright supernatural. First, there's a profound insight into the mechanics of the body and mind. But then, the text details some truly extraordinary achievements. We're talking about creating a mind-made duplicate of one's own body and manifesting psychic powers like walking through walls or even flying. It describes the divine ear, capable of hearing across dimensions, and telepathy, instantly knowing the exact mental states of other people. It goes on to list the ability to recall thousands of your own past lives, and the divine eye, which lets someone see the cosmic workings of karma, literally watching beings be reborn based on their past actions. Finally, it culminates in the destruction of mental taints, which is the total, permanent end of suffering. Now, while these mystical elements might seem pretty fantastical to us today, the text presents them as the absolute highest verifiable achievements of human wisdom. And that leads us to our final part, section 6, Pokrasati's realization of Dhamma, the climax of our story. So word of all this eventually gets back to Ambattha's wealthy teacher, Pokrasati, and he is furious at his students' rudeness and failure. He actually kicks Ambattha to the ground and decides he just has to go see the Buddha himself to apologize and verify the truth. When Pokrasati arrives, he's very respectful. He immediately looks for those 32 physical marks of a great man on the Buddha. He sees 30 of them pretty easily, but he has lingering doubts about 2 hidden marks, the sheathed genitals and an exceptionally large tongue. Now, the source text shares a highly specific and frankly pretty surprising detail right here. Without saying a single word, the Buddha rolls out a tongue so large that it touches both of his ears and covers his entire forehead. I know, it's wild, but seeing this bizarre display, Pokrasati's doubts are completely erased. Having fully confirmed the Buddha's greatness, Pokrasati sits down to listen. The Buddha teaches him step by step, gently guiding his mind exactly like we covered earlier. By the end of this conversation, the text states that Pokrasati achieves the Dhamma eye. What is that? It's the crystal clear, sudden realization that whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. Basically, everything that begins must eventually end. The text tells us that in just a single evening, this profound new wisdom completely overcame the deep-rooted prejudice and pride of a high-caste Brahmin, transforming him into a devoted follower. The Ambattha Sutta leaves us with such a timeless message. It strips away all those superficial labels of class, race, and background, and it points us directly toward our own inner development. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. If ancient lineages and social status don't define our ultimate worth, how are you actively cultivating your own conduct and wisdom today? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible text with me. Keep learning, keep focusing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.